Hi, I'm Bruce Walton from Road Safety Analysis, and this is the second in a series of 10 bite-sized demonstrations of my favourite things MAST can do. In this clip, I'm going to look at an example of setting up route analysis in MAST. So, to do an example of route analysis, I have to start with an example route, and here's one I created earlier. This is an example of a route which loops through the home counties in order to avoid a very busy stretch of the M25. Exactly the sort of thing people might be doing if they were concerned about the traffic around that very busy area of the M25 west of London. The route I'm talking about would leave the M25 around Watford, come through Chorleywood and Amersham, down to the M40 just south of High Wycombe, then across the motorway, down the A404 and the A404M through to the M4, along one junction of the M4, then down the A329M past Wokingham and the A329 through Bracknell down to join the M25 south of the junction with the M3. Now, if I was concerned people were using that as a rat run, or if there was a lot of local concern in those communities about that, I'd want to know how many casualties were being incurred on that route. That sort of information in the past has been very difficult to come across because there are lots of different roads there's lots of different local authority areas, very difficult to get reliable and comparable figures. But not anymore. MAST is the kind of thing that can make that easy. So I'm going to go back into MAST and I'm going to create a casualties report because the numbers I want are the number of hurt people on the route that I'm going to study. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to categorise my report by the class of the roads that the casualties were on rather than by the date. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put date onto the filter tab. I'm going to pretend that my report is going to take a study period of 2 years, 2007-2008, to give me a baseline for assessing my intervention. So I'm going to choose the crash date dimension on the filter tab, and I'm going to filter it to cover only the years that I want. There we are. Then I'm going to go back to the rows tab and I'm going to have my casualties sorted primarily by the class of the road upon which they were incurred. Obviously a big difference there between A roads, AMs and the motorway, the bit of the M4 that was in that route. So I'm going to choose road class. There we go. So at the moment, I'm looking at all casualties in my 2-year period by the class of the road on which they were incurred. First of all, I want to filter that only to the local authorities through which my routes pass. If I go back to the route and have a look, I start in the Chiltern district of Buckinghamshire, through the Wycombe district of Buckinghamshire, through the Windsor and Maidenhead area of Berkshire, then along into the Wokingham area of Berkshire, and finally through the Bracknell Forest area of Berkshire. A formidable total of 5 local authorities. MAST makes that kind of thing easy though. I'm just going to go onto my columns tab, add the crash location dimension, which of course will allow me to select any combination of local authorities I please. There we are. And I'm just going to select the 5 local authorities in question. They're all, of course, in the Thames Valley area. There we are. By the way, when you're selecting multiple authorities, it's often a good idea to turn everything off first, in which case you might find that button, the Unselect All button, in the filter dialog box quite useful. If I click that, it turns everything off, so I've got a clean slate to start with. So now I can just select the areas I want. In the county of Buckinghamshire, I want the Chiltern and Wycombe districts that route snakes through. And then in Berkshire, I want to have the Windsor and Maidenhead, Wokingham and Bracknell Forest areas. I'm going to click on OK. There are my 5 local authority areas that I've selected. You'll notice I've got lots of totals columns on here. That, of course, is because I had to drill down such a long way to find the geographical areas I'm interested in. If you get a report looking like that, you might find it useful to turn the totals columns off just to make it a bit more legible. There's a very useful button that does that on the toolbar. This sum button, the one that says show grid total, just turns the totals on and off. When I click on it, the totals go away so I can more cleanly see the numbers. Right, so what else might I be interested in when looking at that report? Well, at the moment, of course, that's showing me all the roads that run through those 5 areas, and I'm only interested in that specific route. So I'm going to narrow it down using the filter by road number action link. I know the road numbers I'm interested in, and you can type in any combination of road numbers in here and it will filter the report that you're currently creating. So I start on the A404 through Chorleywood and Amersham. I'm just going to select the A404 from the list. Now I want the A404M. Notice that as you start typing a number, it comes up with a list of all the road numbers that match what you typed, and then at any point you can simply select the one that you want off the list. It's very easy to do. Now I'll add the M4. There we are, my route snaking through those local authority districts. Now I want the A329M, which interestingly is a non-trunked stretch of motorway. It's the responsibility of the local authority, not the Highways Agency. And finally, I'm going to add the A329 running through Bracknell itself. There we go. 5 different road numbers that go together to make up what is, for my purposes, a coherent route. And as soon as I click on OK, my data is filtered, so it only includes crashes that occurred on those roads within those local authority districts. And it's all filtered, all sorted for me by the respective road class. You'll notice that minor roads have disappeared there now because all the roads I selected were either motorway or main classified roads. They were A roads. The one interesting thing that I might want to do now is distinguish between the trunked AM road, the A404M that was on my route, and the non-trunked AM road, the A329M. The easiest way to do that is to use a dimension which has only recently been added into MAST that distinguishes between crashes on the Highways Agency network and crashes on local roads. And it's called Crash on Strategic Road, not to be confused with Crash Strategic Road Location, which is the dimension I used in the last bite size. That one simply gives me a straightforward yes or no answer. Yes, it's the responsibility of the Highways Agency, or no, it's the responsibility of the local authority. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that on my rows tab, and as soon as I do that, that will organise my road classes by the local roads and strategic roads that they're made up from. There we go, just add crash on strategic road onto my rows tab there. And there you can clearly see that when I drill down to view the AM roads, which are in my route, some of them are local roads and some of them are trunk roads. So I've got a full analysis of all the casualties on my route by who's responsible for the road that they're on, and also filtered by the local authority district in which they occurred. So that's an insight into how you can develop route analysis in MAST. I'm going to end by saving that. I shall call that route rat run. There we are. That's saved as an example. And so I can now go back to it anytime I want and filter it by different vehicle types or different years or whatever I wanted to do to get an overview of what's been happening on that route over time. Well, that's the end of this bite size. In the next bite size, I'm going to demonstrate the third of my favourite things which MAST can do. I'm going to do an example of an indexed report looking at the socio-demographic background of drivers involved in crashes and how I can use different types of indexing to show me different information.